Merry Christmas, everyone, and welcome to Ginghamsburg. I'm Tim, and today we're lighting the candle of hope. You know, there comes a time in all of our lives when everything around us can seem dim and painful. But today is an invitation to trust in a God who's bigger than our circumstances and whose plan is so much greater than our predicaments. My friends, you are not alone.
Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room. And heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. We will sing, sing, sing. Joy to the world. We will sing, sing, sing. Come on, help us sing it. Joy to the world. Joy to the world, the Savior reigns. Let men their songs employ. Wild fields and floods, rocks, fields and plains, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy, repeat, repeat the sounding joy. We will sing, sing, sing. Joy to the world. We will sing, sing, sing. Come on, let's lift it up together. He rules the world. He rules the world with truth and grace, and makes the nations prove the glories of his righteousness, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love. We will sing, sing, sing. Joy to the world. We will sing, sing, sing. Oh, believed that their little angels are special indeed, and you could grow up to be anything. But who would imagine a king? A shepherd or teacher is what you could be, or maybe a fisherman out on the sea, or maybe a carpenter building things. But who would imagine a king? It was so clear when the wise men arrived and the angels were singing your name, that the world would be different 'cause you were alive. That's when heaven stood still to proclaim. One day an angel said quietly that soon he would bring something special to me, and all of the wonderful gifts he would bring. Who would imagine? Who could imagine? Oh, who would imagine a king?
Hey, Ginghamsburg family, I'm Pastor Rachel.
And I'm Pastor Carl.
We could not be more excited to invite you to worship on Christmas Eve. This entire year has given us an opportunity to totally reinvent ways to do church. And thank you for rolling with the changes, offering feedback, and taking responsibility for the growth and health of our movement. God has so much in store for 2021 and beyond.
Christmas Eve is this Thursday, Pastor Rachel. What should we expect?
Well, if you're joining us in the room, it'll feel a little different than our usual Christmas Eve at Ginghamsburg. Like instead of singing Silent Night with a bunch of candles, then lowering our masks to blow them out, we're gonna use these little finger lights. But aside from that, it'll be Ginghamsburg Christmas with all we're familiar with.
Did you know this year marks the 17th annual Christmas Miracle Offering? The light bulb came on in 2004 when our church realized that Jesus should probably get a present on his birthday. Since then, we've given away over $10 million to meaningful work all over the world and right here at home.
Speaking of turning the lights on, Carl, this year's Christmas Miracle Offering will literally turn the lights back on for hundreds of families here in Miami County. This Christmas, we're gonna pay off some utility bills. Take a look.
My name is Bill Lutz. I am the director of Ginghamsburg's Outreach Center, which is called New Path. We help people, whether it's food, clothing, home goods, transportation, medical needs. We help people, that's what we do. A friend asked me, New Path does so much good, but which New Path service are you most passionate about? Without a doubt, I'm most passionate about the New Path Utility Assistance Program. Each month, without fail, families come into New Path asking for help paying their utility bills. Normally, we have to turn most of these families away. However, in June, we received additional funds from United Way, and since then, we've been able to help every family that has come to us. The poverty rate in Miami County, which is where Ginghamsburg Tip City campus is located, is 7.9%. That's over 8,000 people that don't have the necessary income to afford a basic standard of living. The pandemic of 2020 has only increased the number of families facing tough choices. Choices like keeping the power on or buying food for their family. Specifically in Piqua, where electricity, water, and sewer are all on one bill, many families have bills that are higher than their rent or mortgage. That puts approximately 1,100 families at risk and accumulates to over $1 million in missed utility payments. Think of what might happen without essential utilities in your own home. Basic daily necessities like cooking, refrigeration, hygiene, and heat through the winter would all present significant challenges. If we want to make sure no kid goes to bed without faith, family, and food, we need to make sure they have clean water and electricity to cook. These families need help, and we're going to give it to them because that's what we do. This year's Christmas Miracle Offering is going to expand the New Path Utility Assistance Program by 400 families. Not only that, but we can provide each family with financial counseling to ensure greater financial health and eventually financial freedom. But of course, none of this happens without you. Give the gift of hope this Christmas. It's for the kids.
Whether you participate in the room or online on Christmas Eve, you can make a gift at ginghamsburg.org/give. Remember, Christmas is not your birthday, it's Jesus' birthday.
If you're still planning your family Christmas, we have all times and locations and what to expect at ginghamsburg.org/Christmas. RSVP for the in-room experience so we know what kind of crowds to expect. We're doing our best to keep everybody safe. Now listen carefully. Next weekend will be online only as a gift to our faithful volunteers and staff team. So enjoy the long weekend and worship with us online.
After the holiday break, we're going to start the new year strong. So here's a sneak peek at what's coming next. This has me pumped for the new year. How about you, Pastor Rachel?
I am so pumped for this new series.
Coming up, we take a closer look at the Christmas story to better understand the one word that has gotten us through this chaotic year: hope.
Hello, my name is Fitz, and I'm the family ministry pastor here at Ginghamsburg Church, which means, in part, that I have the privilege of pouring into the lives of kids and teenagers and families and do what I can to point them to Jesus. Now, allow me to begin with a PSA. There are only a few days left until some of you will be wandering around Walgreens looking for the nicest thing there because you waited until Christmas Eve to do your shopping. You're welcome. As I think back on Christmases past, there are very few gifts that I can remember very well. I always had a healthy list as a kid, mind you, but as important as every one of those toys would have been toward my personal contentment, none of them seemed to stick in my memory. Now, I could guess at what some of them might have been, but I can't name any of them. except for one. I call this the one that got away. There was one year that the one thing I hoped for more than anything else was a remote-controlled car. You know the kind. You have the really cool sports car or the monster truck, and you have a remote with a handle and a trigger to make the car go, a steering wheel to steer it, and a button to switch it into reverse. Now, all of my friends had one, so I'd seen them in action, and I knew that this thing was the secret sauce to my inner joy. So that was number one with a bullet on my Christmas list that year. It was circled in the JCPenney catalog. It was written on my list with underlines and stars next to it. There would be no doubt in my parents' mind what they needed to do to ensure their child's happiness and to avoid him talking about them during counseling sessions later in life. Get the remote-controlled car. Well, fast forward to Christmas morning, we got past the breakfast we were required to eat before opening our presents, and now it was go time. What do you think? Did I get the remote-controlled car that I so desperately hoped for? Well, yes. And no. I got a remote-controlled car, so there's that, and I was pretty excited when I saw the box and saw what it was. However, when I opened the box, I realized that it was not exactly what I was hoping for. You see, it was the sports car, which was cool enough, and it had the remote with the handle and the trigger to make it go. However, instead of having the steering wheel and the button to shift it into reverse, it had just one button. One button. How do you steer it then? Great question. When you pushed the button, the car would shift into reverse and would drive in a counterclockwise circle. That's it. So if you wanted to turn left, you had to drive past where you wanted to turn, push the button, making it go in reverse in a circle, and then let it go at just the right time to make it go where you wanted to. It was an okay present, but certainly not the bliss-inducing piece of happiness for which I had hoped. Perhaps you've had a similar experience, but with something far more important than a remote-controlled car. Maybe for you, it was with a marriage. When you met your significant other, you had high hopes. You knew this was the one, you fell in love, and you had dreams about a long life together and kids and grandkids and retirement. But once you got into it, you realized that this marriage looked more like a one-button remote-controlled car. It's okay, but certainly not the bliss-inducing gift you had hoped for. Or maybe worse, it looked nothing like what you had in mind. Like it's not even a car at all. You had hoped. Maybe it's finances for you. You had hope for the future, and you had a plan to get there. You knew what it would take to make the life for yourself and prepare for the future, a college education, travel, retirement, and then cutbacks force you to the sideline. And you're wondering what it will take to get back on track, or worse yet, how you will pay the bills that are stacking up around you. One button. You had hoped. Maybe it's your health. Your grandparents lived to a ripe old age, and your parents are on their way there, and so you had hopes of doing the same. But then there was that visit to the doctor's office, and it shook you to the core. You heard them say positive, and you wonder if that hope you had of seeing your grandkids grow up and get married is now gone. One button. You had hoped. Or maybe when you got that 10-year coin, you had hopes that your struggles with your habits were in the rearview mirror. But then COVID hit and forced you inside. And all of those support mechanisms you had in place were maybe not gone, but certainly different. And it's been hard, real hard. And you want to get back on the wagon, but you're not really sure how. It feels like the button on your remote-controlled car just doesn't do anything. You can't go back, but there's no way to turn in a good direction. You had hoped. Whatever your story, Wherever you have found your hopes challenged, paused, maybe even dashed, the first thing I want you to hear is, you are not alone. It may seem like everyone around you has it all together and are realizing all of their hopes, but humans are really good at putting on the best face imaginable so that no one sees our struggles. And here's the thing. While you're looking at them thinking they've got it going on, there's a good chance that they're looking at you thinking the exact same thing. We all struggle. We all had hoped. What do we do with that? A disappointing remote-controlled car, it's easy to bounce back from that. Never mind the fact that I'm still talking about it 40 plus years later. But what about those other disappointments? The other hope-dashing circumstances in our lives? What do we do when our real-life hopes are challenged? Where do we turn? Mary is someone who, experienced a bit of the remote-controlled car syndrome with very limited options in life. For one, she was a woman. What women in that culture hoped for their lives was immaterial, since they were seen as second-class citizens at best. Now, she did have the benefit of being betrothed, basically engaged, to Joseph, which would have helped her standing a bit. But she wasn't destined for a really lavish future. And Joseph didn't have a lot of money. They were poor. And now on top of all of that, Mary is pregnant. To be clear, this would not have been a violation of the sexual ethics of the time, since a betrothal was a legally binding relationship. It would have been viewed the same as if a woman who is married became pregnant. Here's the problem. She hadn't had sex with Joseph, so everyone could only assume that Mary had committed adultery. Put all of that together, and you have one big cesspool of hopelessness. Like you and me, Mary had hoped. And with all of this reality in mind, Mary's heart bursts forth.
And Mary said, "With all my heart I glorify the Lord. In the depths of who I am, I rejoice in God, my Savior. He has looked with favor on the low status of his servant. Look, from now on, everyone will consider me highly favored because the Mighty One has done great things for me. Holy is his name. He shows mercy to everyone from one generation to the next who honors him as God. He has shown strength with his arm. He has scattered those with arrogant thoughts and proud inclinations. He has pulled the powerful down from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty-handed. He has come to the aid of his servant Israel, remembering his mercy just as he promised to our ancestors, to Abraham, and to Abraham's descendants forever."
As you could hear, this was not some funeral dirge or woe is me lament. It's actually a song of joy. It's a song of promise. It's a song of the H word, hope. How in the world, in the midst of her one-button remote-controlled car life, could she respond this way? Was she just a glass half full kind of person? Was she in denial about the reality surrounding her? Well, I think her song suggests something different. Mary didn't place her hope in a piece of bliss-induced happiness. Her hope was not in her state getting better or some of her circumstances improving. No, her hope was in the God who is way bigger, who knew her circumstances well and dared to declare her blessed, which would mean something so much deeper and wider than anything Mary could imagine as better. She hoped in God, because hope in God does not disappoint. First, Mary placed her hope in the character of God. She begins by saying, "I glorify the Lord." The idea behind Mary's exclamation is that she recognizes the matchless importance of God, such that anything she could hope for would pale in comparison. She goes on to rejoice in God, my Savior. She knew that it was only God's unparalleled goodness that saved her. And finally, God is a merciful God. God looked down and saw this young unmarried girl, and even though culture and circumstances and maybe her own self-talk would have preached a different message, God gave her the privilege of being the mother to God's own Son. God is important. God saves. God is merciful. Mary had hope in the character of God. Mary also placed her hope in the history of God. Any good Jew would have heard stories passed down of God's mighty acts. Mary would have heard stories of a God who conquered armies, who split seas to save God's people, who allowed an enemy to be defeated by a young boy with a smooth stone and a slingshot. This was not just a history of her people. This was the history of God. God who is faithful, God who is strong, God who may seem like is losing at times, but has never and will never lose a war. Mary had placed her hope in God's history. Finally, Mary placed her hope in the promises of God. A promise first spoken to one of her ancestors, Abraham, where God said, I will make of you a great nation and will bless you. You will be a blessing. All the families of the earth will be blessed because of you. God told Abraham that he would be blessed, but not so he could lead a bliss-filled life. God was going to bless him and his family so that he could be a blessing to the world. And Mary was a part of that promise, and therefore part of the blessing to the world. Mary had hope that this unplanned for child would be the one through whom the world would be blessed, through whom the world would be saved. Her hope was in the promises of God. This holiday season, we all have our hopes, don't we? We have hopes of our relationship with our significant other improving. We have hopes for healing of a family member. We have hopes for a job that will help us pay off some of our bills. We have hopes that that temptation won't rear its ugly head again. And we all have hopes that these vaccines will make it so we can hug our loved ones again. Unfortunately, none of these things are promised. We aren't promised the best remote-controlled car. It's not that we can't work towards them or pray for them. We should pray for them. It's just that we are never promised a good or easy life. As a matter of fact, Jesus promised that in this life you will have trouble. This life will be hard at times. So when we place our hope in those things and they don't come to pass, our view of God and God's goodness gets tarnished and we get disillusioned. When I was that child many years ago, my hopes were placed in a toy, so small and so insignificant. And when I didn't get it, I was disappointed. I was disillusioned. What I failed to notice was that I had two parents who loved me dearly. I had two parents who were making a good life for me and my brother. I had two parents who looked at my extensive Christmas list and did what they could to make it an enjoyable Christmas for us. My hope was in an object that would be meaningless to me by the following Christmas, instead of on the parents who loved me and provided for me and who were there for me that day and the next day after that. When we take all of our hopes and we place them at the feet of Jesus, something strange happens. We recognize that while our life experiences may be hard and painful, there is a bigger picture at play. Our perspective is so limited and finite, but God sees it all. And inside God's loving character, God's amazing faithfulness, and God's unbreakable promises, we will not be disappointed. Hope in this God never disappoints. And I'll admit that's super easy to say, but much more difficult to live out. How can we, who so easily place our hopes in things that have the potential to disappoint, shift our hopes to the God who doesn't? What I've found works best for me is when I read and reflect. When I get into Scripture, when I really ingest it, I learn again about the matchless character of God. I see all of the incredible acts God has performed throughout history, and I read the promises God has made and fulfilled. And I reflect not only on those truths, but also on the ways that God's character and history and promises have shown up in my life. How he has interceded and impacted me and those I know personally. Read and reflect. When has God been merciful or loving or powerful to you or for you? What miracles has God performed in your life or in the lives of those around you? What promises has God made to you? Reflect on those answers and the truths you find in Scripture and use them as a foundation upon which to build a stronger hope in God. What would a hope-infused Christmas season look like for you? What would the season look like if you simply took God at God's word? What if you took a step of faith and believed that God is who God claims to be and that God's promises are worthy of your trust? Mary and Joseph, they hoped in God despite an abundance of tangible evidence that there was reason to. What if we did the same? True hope is revealed when we take steps forward in faith, hoping and trusting God's redemption, even in the midst of our broken bodies, our broken bank accounts, and broken relationships. That is trust. That is hope. This week, we will gather online and in person for a Christmas Eve celebration of hope. Friends, people need hope. You do, I do. The folks in our community all need a message of hope. So I urge you to step out and invite folks into this space of light and love. You and your family are invited to take part, and you're encouraged to share the invitation with others as well. So go to Ginghamsburg.org/Christmas and share the Christmas Eve teaser video with friends, neighbors, and family. It's never been easier to include others in the Christmas celebration. Let me pray for us. God, we all have things we are hoping for. Those things are important. They are. There is absolutely nothing trivial about wanting health and healing, or financial freedom, or restored relationships. But hope deferred has the potential to disappoint. God, you are the one thing, the only thing we can place our hope in that will never end up being a one-button remote-controlled car. So we put our hope in you, God. You will never disappoint. You won't leave us disillusioned. You will always prove worthy of our hopes. We love you for this and trust anew in the name of your Son, Jesus, today. Amen.
Thanks, Pastor Fitz. Hope is what keeps us all moving forward.
Remember that we will be online only next weekend, but this Thursday is Christmas Eve. Invite a friend.
Or 20.
Actually, you can invite 20 friends right now by simply tapping that share button. It's the easiest way to share your faith in the last 2,000 years.
Merry Christmas, and we will see you on Christmas Eve.